Yeah.
It is. Cool. Should be good. Take it away.
Right here, I guess. Jack is.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll call the meeting to order. First of all, I want to congratulate Brandon and welcome him to as a full member. Ready for it? The select board appointed him last night, so that's great. You'll recall he's taking George O'Connor's position since George moved to Mount Vernon, so he'll be finishing out George's term. So good to have you. That's good. The other thing I wanted to mention before we get started with the hearings is that I had sent an email out about procedural matters late last week. And I just wanted to check and make sure that there were no comments or questions about that. And to be sure that everyone is comfortable with the suggestion that I made in that email that we leave the record open for a little while after the hearings tonight.
I just had one question. There was one comment you made about the possibility of the decision being reached in March.
I don't think I said that.
Okay. There was something.
I hope I didn't say that. I didn't mean to say that if I did.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we can, once we work through the hearings, we can talk about, procedural things at the end too. And
Well,
talk about,
and I assume that
Time
that would only
frames.
be if there were a special town meeting at home. So obviously it wouldn't happen if they were not.
so, yeah, we can have some more discussion about those process issues, toward the end. So before we open the hearings, I wanted to talk just for a few minutes. I don't know if we have any interested parties or members of the public with us online, or if anybody will show up. There's no one on.
Nobody up there but Jack.
Okay, all right. You know, it's possible that someone may join us, and so I wanted to talk just for a couple of minutes about the agenda for the public hearings and the order of the process. If there is no one new here, I'll omit the Article 9 summary. I was thinking it would be a good idea to talk about that a little bit in the event that there were people not familiar with it as planning board members are. But if there is no one at this point, I won't repeat all of that. I think it's unnecessary. If someone does join us and have questions or comments about Article 9, we can stop and talk about that for a few minutes. So as you know, we have two public hearings tonight on the Norwich solar application and the Cushing storage application. The order of things will be that I'll open the hearing. There'll be a brief applicant presentation and summary from each. If there are any questions about the presentation, either from planning board members or anyone who may join us, those questions can be posed about the presentation itself. And then finally, we'll open it to any public comment that anyone might have. Two separate hearings, one hearing on each of the applications. I won't get into the Article 9 information unless anyone has any questions or comments. If there's anything unclear about the Article 9 process, we can certainly talk about it now. But we have discussed it a couple of times. But if there's anything in particular, we can get into that at this point. If not, we'll just move on. And again, I would stress that tonight's public hearing focuses solely on Article 9 standards and requirements. As you know, if the rezoning under the commercial industrial district provisions is successful, in order to fully approve the project to begin construction, the project would also need to go through the regular site review process. That is assuming that the rezoning is successful. Tonight's hearing is strictly about the Article 9 standards. And as we've talked about a little bit, there is a little bit, it's not a bright line between those sets of standards. It's a little bit of overlap. It's a little bit fuzzy, but I think. If we do receive any comments, the planning board will consider all of those comments in the course of deliberating on the applications. And ultimately, the planning board will make a decision about a recommendation to forward to the select board. And that recommendation can either be to recommend the application, to recommend it with conditions, or not to recommend the application to the select board. So I think that's probably all we need to cover at the moment, unless there are any questions before we proceed. And if not, I will open the hearing on the Norwich application. And as you know, this is an application for rezoning to accommodate a ground-mounted solar facility on a almost 72-acre parcel. The fenced area of the project is around 9.5 acres. And the planning board found this application for rezoning complete on the 14th of November of this year. So with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant, and if you could present your summary and any highlights. I guess we still don't have any interested parties or members of the public. Maybe if someone does join us, you can let us know, and we can backtrack to the extent we need to.
You'll see it right on the screen if somebody joins us.
Would you like, we brought extra boards, blow ups to the site plan. Would you like me to put one on a chair, or are people familiar enough with them?
Well, it might be helpful to have it. You know, we have seen them before.
Yeah, I just figured sometimes it's easier when they're bigger. Oh, is that high enough? Let's try it. Yeah, right. No, we got one of those. They're expensive.
Is there another chair? Should maybe,
Yes, I can.
maybe one in each direction. Everyone can see. Henry.
Can we just confirm that we?
Oh, yes, actually. My notes reflected that, and I didn't say it. Notice of the hearing, was posted and sent in accordance with the specific provisions in Article 9, which are, as Henry just pointed out, somewhat different than the regular that we follow for site. Those noted.
They're really good at her. I was trying to figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. I'm with you.
All right. Sure.
Yeah.
Can you just pull it back a little bit?
So
Or I'm.
Yeah.
how about I just get it right here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. My name is Martha Staffkus. I'm the Chief Development Officer at Norwich Technologies, Norwich Solar. With me is Kara Moody from Stantec Consulting. Kara has been our primary permitting consultant and environmental consultant. The materials were prepared by civil engineering firm Krebs and Lansing. I'm just gonna go through the consultants. We use RLC Engineering, for the electrical engineering from Maine. The project, as mentioned, I'm gonna go through, you all are familiar, we talked about it, but I guess we'll go through it quickly. It's a 975 kilowatt AC array, ground mounted. Panels will be on, posts that will keep the panels at about a 35-degree tilt with about 3.5 feet off at the lowest site and below 10 feet at the highest point. The rows of the array will be generally oriented, running east-west with the panels facing due south. The project is sited 1,000 feet off of Main Road with intervening vegetative buffer that will remain. I feel like it won't be visible from Main Road. We worked hard to address minimizing the potential visual impact of the project. The array will have a fence around it, what we refer to as a wildlife fence, which is a wire fixed knot fence with openings on the bottom to allow small animals through. It'll have a gate with a Knox box block on it. The panels will be connected electrically by conduit in the ground, so it'll be underground between the rows and then underground out to the existing CMP system along Main Road. That's sort of it in a nutshell. I'm gonna turn my environmental elements over to Kara here.
So are you looking for kind of just like a rundown of the application like we did at the last meeting, or?
Yeah, it can be, at this point, a relatively brief summary because we
okay.
don't have any
Right,
members of the
right.
public.
Sure, so, Martha did a great job describing the project. It's located in the rural district, where solar is a permitted use. However, because the project includes a structure area of greater than 5,000 square feet, we're requesting that the project parcel be additionally designated, as the commercial industrial infrastructure district. We went through the Article 9 standards in our application package that we presented last month. And, reviewed the comprehensive plan, in addition to all the standards of Article 9, and feel that the project meets those standards and requirements. We went through that pretty thoroughly last time, so I won't go into all those details unless anyone has specific questions on any of that. So I think that sums it up.
Yeah, the one thing I would add is that I just want to make sure, I know that we're asking for the rezoning for the solar array, but we do want to be sure that the permit, if it moves that direction, authorizes the ability to include agricultural activities, whether it's grazing. If we have an opportunity to work with a farmer, we would like to be able to incorporate that into the area.
I think we did talk about that.
Yeah,
a bit last
yeah, I
time,
just want to
so.
make sure that it's included when it's issued, because I know we can't change it, right? I mean, it's as stated for the array, and I just want to be sure we include the agricultural.
Hey, planning board members, any questions or comments for Norwich? You did such a good job last time. Now, I think there were a fair number of questions earlier. Well, you've been before us twice now with both the site application and also the zoning application. So there was a lot of good discussion associated with both of those, and it was helpful for people to understand the project. So
I'll ask.
Okay.
Did I reread your application again this afternoon? Do I understand correctly that, so the line connection will be, the connection will be underground until you get to Route 17?
Well, It will come above ground so that it can interconnect to the transformer, and then it'll go back down underground along the driveway or the drive out to 17. So just to be super clear, wait, where's the plastic word? So it'll be underground, underneath the array, and then it comes, the transformer will be here, it comes up, and then up above ground, hooks in the transformer, and it goes back down underground out to here.
And the distance between the transformer and Route 17 is about how far?
1,000 feet, roughly, it's 1,000 feet to the edge of the
Yeah,
array,
about
roughly from here to here.
Uh-huh.
What's that?
So it meets the setback.
Yeah, I think from an aesthetic perspective, what I actually really appreciated about citing this project versus others is we're maintaining this buffer, which 17 is out here. So this vegetative buffer, other than the road going through here, these are mature trees. Did anyone have a chance to go out and see it? I know that was a question last, great, okay. So once you're out here, you don't actually even sense 17.
Also upgraded to,
Excuse me?
it's uphill.
Yeah, yeah.
I just looked in the ordinance. I wanted to mention to you with respect to your comment about including agriculture in the allowed uses. There is, part of the process is that there is an agreement that is written and assuming that the project, the rezoning is approved at town meeting, that's recorded at the registry. And that contains any conditions and restrictions and so forth. So that would be a place.
That's what I was reading
Yeah,
too. Yep,
where agriculture could specifically be.
yeah, great.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's unclear to me if what we're acting on here is rezoning the entire lot or rezoning part of the lot to allow this activity. Because the way the Article 9 reads, I'm still unclear whether it's this area that they proposed, this however many acres it is, to be part of the solar project. Because the whole lot is like 70 acres or something. And the project is 9 or 15 acres or something. And we have to record it in the registry. And what are we recording? A portion of it or the entire lot?
Well, the way we've been talking about this thus far, my assumption has always been that it's the parcel, it's the lot that is being rezoned to accommodate this use.
That would also be my understanding. I mean, of course, we're acting only on an application under certain, which sets forth the parameters or the boundaries of each of the functions. So even if, say, hypothetically, we recommend rezoning this lot and it's approved and rezoned, it doesn't mean that the applicant can then build a different array without approval or an additional array. So I don't know, Jack, it's sort of like a distinction without difference, I think.
I guess I'm not familiar enough with the rest of the lots to know like what impact that would have. This, I can't really.
Well, my understanding was that the rezoning would apply to the lot with the specific uses that we're requesting, which is why I keep pointing out the agriculture.
Right.
So we can't do anything else on the lot other than what we're requesting here for the rezoning.
I think that's right because it says the last part of Article 9 is if any use is proposed in the future, it has to go through site review process. Now, agriculture doesn't have to go through, if it's just animals, it doesn't have to go through site review, I think. I'm not sure about that, but anyway, it's a permitted use there.
I mean, there's this piece of property is zoned rural currently. And part of this Article 9 process establishes that even if you rezone to the CID, any proposed use has to be compatible with the allowed uses for that underlying district, which is rural. And so there are certain uses that are allowed without a permit in the rural district. You know, if you want cows, for instance, the planning board would not approve that. It's an allowed use within the underlying rural district.
So if they want to turn 15 acres of this into a solar array now, and then 5 years from now, they say we want to turn 70 acres into a solar array. I know that would have to go through site review, but have they obtained permission for a CID to do that? Because I think the reaction of people would be very different from, you know, this project is fully screened, is back 1,000 feet and all that. If they came forward 5 years from now and said, we want to build, you know, a 20,000 square foot solar array, 10 feet, you know, that would be visible from the road, is that now a permitted activity there?
Well, I don't think so, because this agreement that is filed with the registry includes a site plan and a list of all the proposed uses that the applicant intends to pursue in the future. And so anything that they're considering doing has got to be included in that agreement and has to be submitted now as part of this application process. You know, the LUO is not, it doesn't address specifically a situation where someone successfully goes through this process and then changes their mind in 5 years and they want to do something more. It does suggest to me that you probably have to go through the process again, or at a bare minimum, amend this agreement in some public process that's been filed with the registry.
I think it's reasonable, sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I think Jack makes an interesting point. I think I agree that it runs with the parcel, but I think it also runs with the activity within that parcel that's being approved by the town, a broad scale for whatever that activity is. So if, for example, let's say you will, but let's say you decide to expand the operation.
Right.
Here's, we think we should put a clause in as a condition of the approval when it happens, that says that that happens, then it has to go back to the process again, just to make it explicitly clear. But that's really the case. I don't think we can't change something like this as an overlay and then use that as an opportunity to expand development without a more exposed public.
Right, I
process.
agree, and especially since the ordinance is clear that, you know, you put everything that you intend to do on the table now, you know,
Yeah.
on the plan and.
That's what it's false. I think that's all Jack, and I agree with Jack.
Peter?
Well, again, if an applicant, because whatever reason down the road wants to expand its array, in the case of the solar project, would have to go through at least the solar ordinance and site review. So there'd be ample chance for input. So I don't know whether it has to go through I mean, the area's already been rezoned, but it doesn't mean you can do anything you want with it. Really rezoning to allow this project under with these limitations. So if someone wanted to expand it, they'd have to go through a very elaborate process. Whether it had to be a rezoning process, I don't think, but it's a site review and at least, and also in this case, a solar ordinance review.
Jack, did you have anything else on that?
No, that's good, thanks.
I had a question on the standard. I just wanted to get on the record, I just wanted to understand, one of the standards for the application here is the proposal shall serve the public good, safety, or welfare of the town of Readfield. And I just wanted to understand kind of like what we all thought about that. I mean, I think it probably does, but I just wanted to kind of outline a little bit more. From the tax perspective, is the parcel tax? I mean, how's this taxed? Like, how does that, I mean, that's obviously will that to the benefit of the wealthy town people. What's not to the benefit of the town of Readfield, perhaps. But a layperson may understand, the electrical generation is not to the benefit of the town of Readfield in particular case. So therefore, I just think there have to be other benefits to the town of Readfield for that. Otherwise, it's just an infrastructure project that's sitting there that's not used, but has no benefit to that region.
Well, you had put forward, some points and addressed that standard in your application. Maybe you could summarize those for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe what you're where you're coming from is like, how is this like specifically beneficial to the people that live in this town? Whereas I think kind of one way or somehow we're addressing this is it's beneficial to the people that live in Readfield and the entire state and region. In terms of the fact that, you know, it is a renewable energy source that is going to displace, you know, CO2 and other pollutants, and, you know, provide a clean, renewable source, even though it's not specifically being, well, I guess I don't actually really know what's happening with energy, but I don't think it's specifically being used.
Well, yeah, go ahead, finish what you're gonna say, and then I'm gonna add.
Other points that we made, I guess, just that it's, you know, it's not going to generate any emissions or hazardous materials, therefore not like adversely affecting public health. Won't, you know, cause any increase in demand on town services, no water, you know, sewer, that type of thing.
Education.
Yeah, all the kind of typical town services that you think of. And then, I mean, I think that, you know, one thing that I think about anyway, when I think about solar projects, is it is a form of conserving the land. You know, you're putting this infrastructure on there that is not, you know, just posed in the ground, as opposed to something like a true, like what I would think of it as an industrial development. And once that project is decommissioned and removed, the land goes back to the way it was.
Okay, so I'm gonna add to that. I agree with Kara in all of those points, and particularly, we do consider these temporary structures. I mean, they're long-term, but they do come out. It's not like putting in a concrete foundation. So we are preserving the agricultural qualities and soils of the site. The project will, the property will continue to pay taxes to the town. The project will use local resources where possible. We contracted on other art projects with workers from the area. At the time during construction, it will also, I find that workers go for lunch where there's the closest store nearby. So there are temporary benefits from the construction activities or the installation of the array. And then I would also add that the way our electric grid works, these electrons go into the CMP system, distribution system. So we all benefit, in this case, Readfield will benefit from the electrons. Readfield CMP customers will benefit from the renewable energy going into the system. So I can't say that the electron, one of these electrons is gonna go to your house, but I'm gonna say that they're gonna go in and benefit our system in general.
In fact, does the power generated here eventually wind up in the Newland power pool? Or does it just go totally?
No, it'll be there's net energy billing agreement that's been put in place, and so it will go to a CMP customer. The credit. the electrons will go to the closest outlet.
Also, could you
You're not, you're sorry to interrupt, but you're not offering a community program, it's not a community.
No, it's net energy billing is the
Right,
program.
but that's confusing to people that don't understand the industry, so,
It
that
goes
doesn't, that
to
doesn't benefit the town.
CMP customers.
Yeah, but I mean, that's statewide and it's,
Well, it could be the Readfield School. I just don't know. As we stand here, you can't, it's almost impossible, I will say, to sign up a net energy billing customer when I can't tell them when the array will come online.
sure,
All right, so if I knew that the array, or if, let's say, I'm just gonna use the Readfield School, if the Readfield town offices wanted to be a net energy billing customer and they wanted to wait for, till when, then that would be great, but that just doesn't usually happen. I mean, I'll be honest, I did a project in Winthrop and they wanted to sign up the schools and I couldn't commit to when the project would be ready. So I can put them on different arrays. They can be, if there's a project that's completing construction in Lewiston, now, then we could do it, but it wouldn't be directly to the town until the project's in.
Mhm.
And people are trying to do their budgets.
And I think generally it's kind of a difficult standard, to apply, not only to this project, but I mean, to any industrial or commercial project, when you think about it. I doubt that there would be many, excuse me, or any that are designed specifically for the benefit of the town of Readfield. I mean, it's peripheral benefits at best, I would think, on most proposals that would come in front of us.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that, but I think the public good, safety and welfare of the town of Readfield, specifically the town of Readfield, it's the standard. I guess I don't disagree that it's maybe a little wishy-washy, but I'm just trying to define that a little bit in the solar space. I think it's a little more complicated in the solar space. I don't disagree. I appreciate your answer. I think it's fine. But I also, does the tax of the property increase with the infrastructure on it? This is sort of a question from a welfare perspective, from a revenue perspective for the town. If that's the case, the value of the property increases with the infrastructure.
Not, my understanding is no, the
Right,
state
so there's
not
no
taxing
benefit to the town.
solar.
And,
Well,
taxing the land underneath it.
I mean, from an environment, if you believe, you have to believe the environmental aspects of it, if you believe that. But if you really understand how it works, understand the economic impacts it has in the state, then it's just how your personal belief is really how it's driven, but when it's specifically for the town, we're not gonna get the electricity in the town necessarily, it's not a guarantee, nor is it electricity, and then secondly, the welfare, the tax base piece, I mean, the tax base doesn't increase with the property, if you put a subdivision in, or you put a industrial building there, the tax base would increase significantly. So I guess the question is, why would the tax base not increase? I didn't know that, so I don't really understand why it wouldn't.
I think we have to look at public good, safety and welfare in the full sense of the term, of those terms. This is a renewable energy project. It will generate, if it works properly, it will generate a fair amount of electricity without further polluting the environment, the air we all breathe in Readfield and everywhere else. There are many industrial projects where I would be much more skeptical of the standard of public welfare. If someone wanted to put a cement factory in Readfield, for example, if you could, which would be polluting, that's one thing. This is very different.
Like I said, from the environmental perspective, I don't disagree with you, but that's not the standard.
The standard is public good, safety, or welfare. Why isn't that environmental is a key element of all those things.
Oh, I don't disagree, it's not the only element, however, economics is another element as well. I think, I don't disagree with you, I'm just asking the question. Just,
There's no requirement to check all the boxes.
there's no requirement to check all the boxes either. Right. I think an issue like this is extremely important to have. I'm surprised there's nobody here from the public this evening, but I would like us to make sure this topic is discussed at a broader level throughout the town, because I think it's very important that we as a board, as representatives of the town, who basically, responsible for making decisions on these kinds of applications, and particularly this process, I think we have to have, we have to have the town's perspective on what the town wants to do and how the town uses these kinds of things rather than just our opinions. I'm totally okay with whatever the public wants to do, but it is the public who makes the decision. It's not Henry who makes the decision. Nor this board entirely.
Brandon, did you have a comment earlier?
Oh, I just had a question. So solar fields are not taxed as commercial? You're not, you guys don't pay any tax on them panels?
Well, not when we pay tax on the equipment.
Do you pay it to the town of Readfield?
No, not, my understanding is no, but I'm gonna confirm it, because my understanding is that the state is trying to promote the development of solar projects, and my understanding was that there's not a tax on the project.
So it's a commercial project that you don't pay tax on?
That seems nuts.
Yeah,
That's
well,
kind of subsidized.
I'll confirm it and send the
So
information
would they have to pay the personal property tax on that?
on the equipment.
So they'll pay that to the town of Readfield?
Yeah, that's what I got. I'm gonna confirm, but my understanding was that the state has said that the projects are not taxed. The underlying land is still taxed.
But not as an improved property. Or,
Well, I'm gonna get you the answer. I mean, that's,
did you have something?
Yeah, as code officer, I'd like to address the point you made. You can lead a horse to water. Every one of these meetings has been noticed. The post office here in town hall. This meeting was double noticed in the Kennebec Journal, predominantly, because that's the requirement here. There's been very few participants. The caveat here is, I didn't expect many, I don't know if anybody else did. But the caveat here is when it goes to town meeting, it's gonna be a very obvious situation. Because it's new, because it's solar, you're gonna have the interest there. And it's gonna be up to these folks. I think they're gonna have to take a hand in selling this to the town, because at that point, although solar is in many people's, ideal is fantastic, wonderful, it's gonna save the world, it's gonna stop pollution and killing of little animals. A lot of people just have a bad opinion of it, right or wrong, from past experiences or what they think. I think that's the point where you'll have the public interest, and that's where we'll come in. And that's where this, group will have to, do the selling then. As far as these meetings, I didn't anticipate many, and we did go out of our way to make it very obvious, that this, these meetings were going on. Okay?
Part of the reason that I was advocating for leaving the record open for a bit, after the hearing was that, I think it's important that we make sure that anybody, who has comment, has an opportunity to make it. There may be someone who, doesn't come tonight, but may want to provide comment. And I think we're really obliged to provide as full an opportunity as we can, for people to do that, so. Particularly since this is a new process and it's not something that people really have influence.
I would also add that I think just given the time of year, I think it's too more much of a good thing that was mentioned to matters of town at the moment, but some families and things, perhaps maybe a little extension into January or something would be appropriate, just so.
Can you further explain that so that we understand like what that means? Like you're gonna extend the public comment period until January, but not like have another public hearing or?
Well, we'll talk about it, you know, some more when, you know, the hearing portion is concluded, but in terms of time frame and so forth, but my thought was, to leave the record open for a short time for anyone who might either want to provide comment for the first time or supplement comment that they may have made tonight. No one's made comment, obviously.
Right.
But to provide that additional opportunity, I was not thinking an extended period. I wasn't thinking until January, but we can talk about that.
I just do that.
You know, I thought, you know, until perhaps right before Christmas and, you know, maybe until the Thursday or Friday before Christmas, that's, you know, a week and a half or so. And in part, I was thinking along those lines, because of the schedule coming up in January, the planning board's schedule, the select board's schedule, thinking about when we would present some kind of a recommendation to the select board. And really, the earliest that we could do that, when you look at all the factors at play here, the first opportunity to do that would be for the select board's meeting on January 22nd, I believe it is. But, you know, we need to talk about that as a full board, and we've not made decisions, but when I was thinking about it, those are the things that I was considering.
Are we,
Just-
not having a meeting on January 9th?
We are.
Well,
And, well, let's see if there are any other questions about the substance of this first, and then we can talk more about process and time frame on this one.
Can I just ask one question? There have been no public comments on this application to date, is that correct? I just want to make sure I have that written down correctly.
I also just in fairness to you, I don't need to take my questions or comments as perhaps you feel like I'm not. I really don't, because and the planning board members here perhaps don't know what I do professionally, but I permitted and constructed gigawatts of solar throughout the United States, including some offshore wind projects that I'm working on. So I'm very familiar with, I do more of the financial side of it, so I'm very familiar with how it actually works in the background. So
Yeah.
the purpose of my comments are more to try and create more transparency about some of the processes that most of the public does not understand.
And you're probably familiar with a project that is snack bar to rebar, where the economic benefit to a local community just by the construction activity alone is relevant.
And as I mentioned to you in a previous meeting, that was that's been sold to the town before in our previous experience with that other project.
Sincarfa.
And they didn't use anybody in town, so. That's why.
If you don't have the resources,
That's why
that's the only
skepticism.
caveat, right? I mean, we use.
There are always some resources available.
Our electricians are in Herman and.
You seem like a.
But we're also like not them, so you can't
Yeah.
say that we're not gonna do that,
I'm not.
they didn't do that, and.
That's right.
I mean, that's also made the point of like, even if you're not, if there aren't resources here to use, you're bringing in outside resources that are gonna go to the little barn stand down the street or whatever on the street, so.
Exactly.
Paula,
Jack,
I noticed that there's there's another person on the Zoom call who wasn't there before.
and correct me if I'm wrong, John, but that's one of your property abutters, correct?
Where?
Kartika, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
That would be me. Yep.
Okay. And so I'm assuming that you may have some comments or you have an interest in John Cushing's application. Did you have any comments about the solar application that we're currently discussing?
Thank you for
Brenda?
asking. No, I don't have any comments about the solar plan.
Okay.
But certainly have interest in hearing what John has to say about what's going to go in next door, and no specific comments necessarily, just want to listen.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Okay, anything else from planning board members? Substantive issues, questions? And if not, we can talk a little bit about process. We do have a planning board meeting on the 9th of January, that's the first, and the second planning board meeting is what is that, the 23rd. The select board meeting is on the 22nd. And it is possible, if we left the record open until Thursday before Christmas. I don't have the calendar in front of me, but about a week and a half, 20, yeah, it'd be 22nd. That would provide an opportunity for anyone else to provide written comment if they so chose. The planning board does meet, the regular meeting is the 9th of January. And that would be an opportunity for us to deliberate on this application, potentially make a decision about what recommendation we want to make to the select board. You know, I don't want to presume that our discussion and our deliberation will take us to that decision point, but it certainly could. So I think that's what I would propose, that we have an eye toward the 9th of January for that deliberation session, and possibly a decision concerning what recommendation should go to the select board. That would give us time to draft whatever the recommendation is, make sure that planning board members have an opportunity to review it, modify it if that's what we need to do, and then provide to the select board for their January 22nd meeting. Yes.
I have just process questions. So is your deliberative process open to the public? I mean, if there's gonna be questions that come up, we would wanna be here to be able to answer them, to not delay this. As I mentioned, there's been no public comment, so I'm assuming that the comments are gonna come from you folks. I think we've answered everything we could think of answering. So if there's a deliberative process on the 9th and that does not end in a conclusion or a decision, then I would want to be here if you thought it was going to be helpful, because I really don't want to delay it if we can keep the process moving.
Yeah, I certainly understand that and your need to move it along. That process, that deliberative process would be the planning board's deliberation, our discussion among ourselves. We would in fact close the hearing before we began to deliberate. So it's not an opportunity for public comment, that's tonight.
Right.
And until, and written comment until whatever date we agree.
Right, is it executive session?
No.
Okay.
People, the public can be present, but wouldn't be speaking, we'd be.
No more testimony, right? Okay, well, and I could zoom it.
Yes, you could, yeah. Jack, did you have a comment?
Well, just that having them available to answer any questions that planning board members might have would be good.
I didn't hear.
To have us there to answer any questions that the planning board members might have.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to plan for.
In the past, if we received public comment, sort of collect them and then share them with the applicant during that window. So
Yes,
So
yeah.
like if we get a public comment in 2 days from now, we just send it to you.
Yeah, well, to Chip's point, I mean, we've been here 3 times and those meetings have all been warned and we've not had anybody
Right.
making comments. I'm not, and they're making
Yes.
how they're gonna make more
Yeah,
comments.
you may not get it.
Are you gonna stand on the street corner and try to solicit comments? I'm not sure what's gonna happen. No.
So yeah, if there was any, it certainly would be shared with you.
Yeah.
You know, prior to,
All right,
um,
I think we'll at least plan to zoom in, and I'll talk with Kara as to if they're gonna be here or not.
and so, I mean, planning board members, I mean, are you all comfortable with that timeframe and process sequence? Is that okay?
But it seems okay, even if you held the record open for 10 days, which would be the longest, I think, makes it, would be the 22nd, which I guess is the Friday, the Thursday, it's the Friday.
21st, then,
21st.
21st, by the Thursday,
That gives the town time to give the comments to
Right.
us
right?
and to the applicant. And you might want to ask if there are comments, do you want the applicant to respond in writing then before January 9th? We don't, because I think on January 9th, we want to deliberate based on everything we've seen, we don't, but not to get more information, more new information on
Right,
January 9th.
right.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, if there's anything, it will be shared with you if you want to respond.
We will. We don't wanna leave any questions unanswered.
All right, so, we will leave the record open until Thursday, the 21st at 5 p.m. And then plan to put this on the agenda for deliberation for January 9th.
Okay,
Okay, thank you very much.
thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so the second application before us tonight is John Cushing's application for rezoning for a commercial industrial district to accommodate an expansion of his existing storage business. And I would again mention that notices have been provided in accordance with Article 9 requirements, which are different than our usual site review requirements. They've been sent and posted consistent with Article 9. This application is to expand the existing storage business by adding 2 buildings. And as I recall, that brings the total square footage to around 12,000 square feet. Now, we do have an interested party. Ms. Wright has joined us by Zoom. And just for your information, Ms. Wright, just to make sure that you're clear on the process that we're talking about tonight. This is a different process than the one that the planning board is usually engaged in. Our regular site review process for projects is not what the subject of this hearing is tonight. We're looking at a special process that the land use ordinance establishes, and it's a rezoning process for a commercial and industrial district. And the significance of this in this case is that commercial and industrial developments cannot exceed 5,000 square feet cumulatively with respect to the size of the structures, unless they're located in this special district. So there are a number of standards and requirements associated with the district, and the process is a little bit different. So if the rezoning is successful, then this project, the storage buildings, would have to come back before the planning board and go through the regular site review process that I think you're familiar with, because I think you commented on other applications. So there would be that review process and that opportunity later on if this rezoning is successful. The rezoning, this process requires at the end point that approval occur at town meeting. So there would be a vote on this rezoning at town meeting. That's the final step in the final approval process. If you want to know more about the process, it's in Article 9 of the Land Use Ordinance. And if you have any questions about it right now, we'd be happy to respond. Or if you have questions later on as you're looking at it, you can get in touch with Chip Stevens, the code enforcement officer, who can respond to questions. So, is there anything more that we can tell you about the process right now?
No, I think I understand. I appreciate you clarifying that there are multiple steps, and yes, Scott and I both eyeballed the previous changes to the property next door, and it's just been good to follow what's going on with our neighbors. That's the biggest thing. So no significant concern, and we'll just follow it along as it goes. And if I have questions, I will certainly reach out. Thanks so much.
All right, please do. Okay.
Paula, should it be explained that she could comment tonight?
Oh, yes, certainly. If you have any comments as we move through this tonight, I'll come back to you to check in and see if you have any comments or further questions. But you certainly can provide comments tonight if you choose to do that.
I understand that. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I will open the hearing on the Cushing application, and would ask John to provide a summary and provide the highlights for us of your project.
All right, well, I'm looking to build 2 new buildings. Right down next to the building that I just built last. One building is 100 by 50, and the other building is 100 by 20. The smaller of the 2 is double doored, and it's a low profile building. I don't think it's any taller than 12 feet. The other building is just at the wall, 20 feet tall, and it's 100 by 50. They're just gonna be storage units. So there shouldn't be any more traffic than people popping in and popping out to store things. The big building is more of boats, cars, so when they come in once. No one comes down until spring and then they leave. So I think it'd be low traffic, but that's about it.
Since we do have one of your abutters here with us tonight, maybe you could talk about the distances from the property lines and, the nature of the area between
With
the buildings and the property boundary.
Okay, with the rough measurements, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, I don't have it in front of me, but you should have a 20-foot buffer of trees on the side that is on this is right, it's on the other side it's less. She will have a good buffer of trees between her property and my buildings. If we do lighting, it's gonna be solar, and we'll make sure that it's not on that side of the building. I'm just gonna do it. Solar on the building. Yeah, there's roughly 20 feet between the buildings and the property line. So there won't be 20 feet of trees, there'll probably be more like 6 feet of trees. On the other side, I guess it's about the same thing. I do know that this has not been surveyed, this is with, a tape measure trying to run through the trees. But we do know there's going to be a site visit, and if for some reason there isn't enough of a buffer to satisfy you guys as well as myself and as well as the neighbors, we'll either have to shrink the buildings or turn it into one building. I think we discussed that the last time I was here. So without an actual survey done, trying to measure it, it's not exact. So this process is just to change or to allow it to go to the next step. And in that process, like I said, if we get down there and we start cutting trees and it doesn't look like there's gonna be enough of a buffer, you guys can change that.
And I think this is, one of those areas of overlap that I mentioned earlier, where this Article 9 does require that, the way in which the development is envisioned, has to be presented in the application. But on the other hand, when it comes time, if it comes time for site review, the planning board has the ability and the authority to make modifications, as John suggests, to ensure that the site review criteria are complied with. So if it was determined, for instance, that during the site review process, the planning board felt there wasn't sufficient buffer, that could be required through the site review process. Again, it's not a bright line. We do need to have the information about generally the placement of the buildings and so forth in this process. But the site review process opens up the ability for us to look at additional detail and impose conditions.
Well, and I have, if you look at the map that I drew, there's 63 feet in between the buildings. So there is some room to play. I mean, I'd like to build what's on here, but if we don't feel, when we get the middle, that there's gonna be enough of a buffer on any one side, we can bring the buildings closer so that, I'm sure they don't want to stare at this building. But that's why this is the perfect spot. It's down over a hill, there's tons of trees. Especially on this right side, there's more trees than on the other side. But the other neighbor's house is up towards the road and up on the top of the bank, so they're not really staring at it either. So it's kind of, to me, it's a perfect location for what I want to do. I think it's better than being right on Main Street.
Mr. Cushing, am I correct that you don't plan to run electricity into these buildings?
I don't plan to, but I can tell you, I thought about it after I left the last meeting, because I'm gonna put solar lights. I don't care to have electricity down there, but I don't know if the 50 by 100, I'd want to heat that, because I can get, it costs more to run, but you can get more for it. And I don't know, a lot of people now want heaters, so I have no idea why they want to pay that extra, but a lot of people with boats, they like that. So I'm not saying that I won't, but if you guys have a provision that you'd rather I didn't, I mean, we can discuss that as we're doing this, but I don't know if I really want to say I'm not gonna put electricity down. If you don't want the lights down, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have placing the lights, so it doesn't interrupt the neighbors. But, and it would be all underground if I did it. I don't want to stare at the telephone poles. I'm actually thinking about pulling the telephone pole that's in the middle of the dooryard out, but I gotta see if this project goes through. It's just an eyesore to me.
What are the current hours of operation of that business, the storage unit business?
Well, I only store stuff during daylight hours when people want to store stuff downstairs, but I open it and I leave it to them. It's basically, if you want to see, it's 24/7, but I don't have a lot of traffic. I go by there at 2 in the morning sometimes. I'm one of those people that I'm up all hours of the night. And I don't think I've ever seen more than 3 cars there at once. And it's usually one person with 2 people helping them. It's very minimal traffic. So I don't see people, if I had to, if we started getting complaints, people showing up at midnight getting stuff, I could let my customers know that from this time to this time. And if I had to, I could gate it. A lot of these buildings have gates. I don't believe I need them. I don't have any problems yet. And not a lot of people come there. There are a few people that show up 8 or 9 o'clock. I see once in a while, because I have cameras, lights. But they're in, they're out in 10 minutes. You know, I've never had a complaint yet, so I haven't addressed it. You know, if Mrs. Wright, you know, all of a sudden saw traffic coming in all the times, wee hours of the night, I'd be concerned myself. Just because something's going on, what are they storing there? I keep an eye on my stuff. Once in a while, there's someone there, they're just turning around using their phone, but you know what, odd hours of the night, I just pull in, I see them on their phone, and drive off. But, I'm concerned as well as everybody else, because a lot of things happen in the neighborhood that you don't want happening, and I don't want happening in my place. So.
Other questions, comments for John? Ms. Wright, did you have any comments or questions for John Cushing at this point?
The only comment that I think I'll share is that, Scott and I both appreciate the, responsible use of the land and the color scheme for the buildings that he's put in plans so that it blends in with the wooded back corner of our lot. Our house is in the front opposite corner, so we don't spend a lot of time in the woods, but it's nice to have a buffer, and I appreciate his concern for shifting things. He's looking ahead as needed, and I understand that's for another meeting if the change of zone is approved. So appreciate that.
Well,
Thank you for that. Anything else? Any board members? Other questions, comments for John? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to suggest, I think, that we just follow the same schedule with this application as we are for the other. Leave the record open until the 21st and plan to deliberate on this application as well as the other on the 9th of January at our next regular meeting, if that's acceptable to everyone around the table.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. And if any other comments are received, John, during that time, we'll let you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Wright, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. Take care.
So I did have one additional.
John, did you have a jacket?
Oh, that's fine.
Oh, never mind, it's Paula's.
Long fitting.
He's like, don't need it.
I did have one additional item I just wanted to address briefly. I mentioned that Eric and I have been looking into hiring a consultant for the LD 2003 work. There is a contract in place at this point, and we met, Jack, Eric and I met via Zoom with the consultant a couple of weeks ago, just for an initial conversation prior to their signing the contract. And, but that is now in place, and North Star Planning will be here also on the 9th of January for an initial conversation about the work that we're doing to revise the ordinance. I had a discussion, a phone discussion with the senior planner who will be joining us on the 9th. And he is going to put together a package that will come to everyone at least a week before the meeting so that you can review it. And they really have this, which is a good thing, it's on a fast track, understanding that, you know, we don't have a great deal of time, But in talking with them, they seem quite comfortable that this is doable and that they can get things to us and completed in time to get the changes to town meeting. So that involves attending the meeting on the 9th of January. And then they would be coming back on the 13th of February and the 12th of March to have discussion with the board about potential land use ordinance revision changes to accommodate 2003. I think that he is going to have some initial draft language ready to present at that meeting on January 9th. But there are certain things that are mandatory, things the town has to do, and there are things that are optional that the town could do. And I've asked him to make sure that he puts something together for everyone that's clear in that regard, so we know exactly what it is that must be done versus those things that are optional that we could do with the ordinance. So that will be coming to you a week or so before the meeting on the 9th. He will be joining us via Zoom. And I think that is about it. So keep an eye out for that information.
Should each of us download that LD? Are there copies available for us to read?
Did you provide that?
I'll provide it again.
Before I was on the board, maybe?
No, I'll get.
Yeah, if you want to, and I don't know if anyone else needs it, maybe just circulate it again generally and make sure everyone.
We got
has
the
it.
LD, plus we have a couple of articles that were written describing what's going on, what's necessary. If I may ask a question,
Sure.
I'm dealing with this with the other town I provide services for over in Wayne. One of their great concerns is they're looking at another organization, is that will these folks be checking out our ordinance? As our ordinance is probably not as pure as the state regulations. We have, made things stricter than the state in certain cases. So hopefully they'll be looking at our.
They're already looking at it.
Good.
He's reviewing it right now, as a
Okay.
matter of fact. We had that conversation today as well.
Excellent.
He started almost immediately after they signed the contract, a couple of
We're
weeks
lucky to
ago.
get.
What was the, can you give us a sense of the guidance that you provided in that spirit? Like, was it, to me, the LD 2003 seems challenging.
Yeah.
That's how I reacted when I saw it.
Yeah.
The language we have in our ordinance it's so interwoven, like throughout the whole.
Right.
Whole ordinance, so it seemed like there would be a lot of small changes in the ordinance that would occur. Is that sort of the perception that you also have?
I think that's true, and they're not finished, but they certainly are in the process of reviewing the ordinance. One of the things I thought was especially good about hiring this particular consultant is that they've done this work for other towns. I can't tell you exactly which ones, I don't remember, but they have.
Always good enough to be first.
But more importantly, I think they understand 2003.
Yeah.
And the various ways in which it can be implemented. And so I was encouraged by that in particular.
I like what you said about providing optional thoughts. I think would be helpful. I think I could see that going, I mean, I don't know, because I don't really know much about it yet, but I could see it going perhaps stricter or more lenient depending on how against the current.
Right, and I think, as a body, I think we'll have inclinations in certain directions about, whether things should be stricter in some particular regard or not, and so from a policy perspective, I think there are various ways they could implement the changes based on whatever guidance they get from the board collectively.
Right. Yeah.
And I did ask him to, my sense is that, each of us is kind of in a different place with respect to our knowledge of LD 2003 and some of the associated issues. So I did ask him to make sure that he built into their presentation, an overview of 2003. This is what it is, this is what it means, these are the different parts of it. These are the ones that you have to do, these are the things that are optional. So he'll start with that. And hopefully that will get, all of us on the same page and we'll have a common understanding about what we're working with.
And what's your perception about the impact of the two? What is your perception
I'm
about?
glad you have a consultant to do this. I know one town is trying to do it on their own, they're having a heck of a time, and they can't find anybody at this point. But one point I would bring up and make is be careful about stricter or leaner. It's so much easier when we're talking shoreland, because stricter is always more protective of the shoreland.
Mhm.
So you know which direction to go. This, on the other hand, is to open up our ordinances to probably less restrictive regulations on auxiliary dwelling units and the such. So stricter is maybe not strict in the sense that it's gonna make it more difficult for them. Stricter would be maybe making it more open, so it's kind of like opposite of strict. You're gonna have to figure out, which direction you're going in. So I caution you about using stricter and less stricter.
I think what we'll find in part is that, 2003 will require us to modify the ordinance to allow some things that are not currently allowed. I mean, that is going to
That's a
happen.
good way to.
So rather than talk about stricter or more lenient, it's probably easier to put it in those terms.
Yeah, I mean, that's my perception too. I guess my thoughts were allowing whatever that thing is, accessory dwelling, so we don't know the right language. I guess, it's great, but, it is what it is, the powers to be have made the decision, but then, I guess learning about how we can, apply certain standards to that, to put it on a free for all. I don't think anybody wants it to be a free for all, but also we don't want to restrict it, that's something we can't restrict.
We can't.
Yeah,
My point is, I guess that's where it is so interwoven to the document.
Right, it
I
is,
glanced
it
at it,
is,
it's
it is.
really confusing, so.
And, I think some towns may have taken the approach of just, writing this big new thing, and sticking it in their
Like a
ordinance.
supplementary.
And I don't, my sense is, we probably don't wanna do that, I
No.
don't think it would work for us.
But there are areas you might want to delve in, like, are these allowed to be bed and breakfasts? Are these allowed to be, summer housing?
Oh, bed and breakfast.
Right, because they haven't covered that in state regulations,
Yeah.
even though this was meant to open up the market for more housing. I'm not sure if it's gonna do that around here, so something you might wanna keep in mind is you can get your agenda into this and still make it more open for that agenda by saying, well, are we going to allow these to be bed and breakfast? Are we gonna allow them to be rented for 30 days or so? There's some language in the state, but it really leaves it open to that kind of use. And that's something that you can, and, ask questions about and maybe, clean it.
I assume that I assume there's still the ability for each community to maintain its, character in accordance with whatever it is. I'm assuming, for example, Auburn would apply differently than Readfield, I think there'll just be different, there's just different aspects of the law. It's a one size fits all law when they pass, so it's kind of difficult.
So they gave the smaller towns more
And
time.
then secondly, has MMA or anybody done anything on this? There must be some. Oh, look at that, you got something.
LD 2003 guys, it's actually economic and redevelopment. Of
course.
So it's same .gov. But it's actually got quite a lot of stuff. there.
terrible. It's terrible.
So I haven't gone through it all, but
That's a
it's
small, right?
yeah, but this is like, people ask questions.
Can you forward that link to me so I can share it with everybody with the other information I got?
Do that right now.
Thank you.
I thought Jack had forwarded that, he didn't send that to you, and
I probably forwarded it already, I just want.
I mean, the more we could just read about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Before we get engaged. with
No,
this.
definitely. No, there is some interesting stuff in there, but
Oh, I'm sure.
it's,
A lot of inaccuracy, you know.
there's a lot. Yeah, it is, DECD who has also promulgated rules around this. Or those are out there as well.
Those. Okay, so those are on top of the rules, like,
Yeah.
that's
Or the side or under it or something, yeah.
switch it in.
So, I think that's all I have on that.
Are we sure that the legislature is done?
No. You can never be sure the
You
legislature.
know what I
is
mean,
done.
because this is the floating around and
Yeah.
extended and
Right,
debated. and
Right, and I think it's entirely possible that there'll be something that pops up, you know, when the session opens in January.
Yeah.
And there, you know, there may be towns that, you know, are looking for another extension,
We're ready.
but not us.
You never, every legislative session, it could be altered at any time. If I recall, before this was passed, in a prior session, a couple of years ago, there was a more far-reaching, a more proposal that didn't get.
I think the timeframes were changed several times, and they kept moving those around. And then they split it into like different size
Large cities.
municipalities. And cities like Augusta had to be, it had to be implemented by the 1st of January. And then the town like Readfield is the 1st of July.
So our plan is to go to regular town meeting.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and then that would be part of the LUO.
Right.
And the edits.
Yeah. So, John, are you gonna send that around? Okay, all right, sure. So I think the only other thing is, we have a set of minutes from November 14th, and I had just a couple of little things, so I didn't send them around, and I'll just mention, on the first page, the third paragraph from the bottom, last line, should be farmland soils instead of souls. Oh, I found it interesting and amusing, but I think we should probably change it.
It's right around Halloween.
And then on the second page, around the middle of the second paragraph, there's a piece that starts, the side of the property by the railroad tracks will have a 10-foot tree buffer. The neighbor's trailer is 15 to 20 feet from the old church building. And I tried to visualize that. I don't recall any trailer there, and I wasn't certain what this was talking about. I don't know if anybody remembers. So the neighbor's trailer is 15 to 20 feet from the old church building, which is about 400 feet from the new buildings. There is a fence that might be 15 to 20 feet from the old church building, but I don't think there's a trailer over there.
I think he might have been alluding to a customer whose trailer is parked over there. It's parked on the side of the building, you see it over there.
Maybe I took it literally as like
The-
a trailer.
The camper,
Um,
I'm assuming, but I do know that there is a camper over there,
Yeah.
parked on the side.
I can't remember that.
well, if that's,
But I can go back over the video too and re-listen.
yeah, okay. If it's just a camper, I mean, a mobile camper, then it really wouldn't factor into this conversation about distances. Yeah, if you could check and see what it was,
Yep.
Angelica,
Yep.
because I'm just not sure about that. And then, the bottom of page 2, LD 2003. The first line says, Paula discussed the new legislation which takes effect in January 2024. And
Why?
I would say instead, which Readfield must implement by July 1, 2024. And then the last thing I have, the very last piece where it says schedule. The last line, Paula will send a memo to Norwich to let them know of the public hearing date. What I had mentioned, they knew the public hearing date, that's something Shipley had provided to them. I was referencing the memo that I sent to Norwich about the rezoning timeline. So I would say instead, Paula sent a memo to Norwich discussing the rezoning timeline. So, anyone else, any edits?
I'm sorry to say, I have a couple even more insignificant comments, and it just has to do with readability. So if someone didn't look above and see others attending, I would, if you go down in the first page to the under public meeting, the third paragraph, Kara, third line there, Kara, I think there, since I'd say Kara Moody stated, because just in case no one,
Yeah.
then you go down 2 more paragraphs. The board advised them, instead of them, I suggest to say the applicant's representatives.
Okay.
Just so we know who them is, and there's no confusion.
Yeah.
The last line in that same paragraph, I think there's a word missing. Within the project area, but stated. I think, who, we need a subject, who stated it? Is it the? I wasn't sure there, who stated that?
Yeah, it had to be the applicant.
Yeah.
Okay. And then last paragraph on that first page, saying Jeff, the first time we mentioned Jeff, we probably should give his last name to Jeff Martin.
Okay.
That would be my thought anyway. And then there's just 2 more comments.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Maybe 3. First paragraph on the second page, 100 by 50, the second to last line, and then I think there's a period missing. 100 by 50 period, the address is at, or maybe not, maybe it's a comma. Doesn't matter. Next line, John, same thing, I would put John Cushing. John Cushing. And then the next paragraph after that, first line, the board agreed that no site visit is needed, but I would add the applicant may need, so the applicant may need to modify it. Also, this is really, I'm sorry, the last comment, which is really the next line, I think, I don't know, agreements, I would say agreement. John was in agreement, but.
You know, that caused me to
look it up.
look it up. So I Googled agreements, and what did I find? That, you can use them both. Okay. However, agreements has fallen out of favor and was used principally in the 16th and 18th century.
Well, I am very,
We are.
It's sort of a Renaissance touch.
Oh, that's funny.
Changes to make.
So that's it for my little comments.
I'll worry about.
No, that amused me. Anything else? Anyone? No, I would take a motion.
Motion to accept the minutes of November 14th.
Yep.
As amended.
Second,
Motion and second, further discussion? All those in favor? And Jack?
Yes,
Okay, that's all I have. Anyone else? Anything?
Next meeting is the 9th.
Next week is the 9th. Oh, I did want to ask, I don't know that we'll need extra time necessarily, but we will be deliberating on both of the rezoning applications. And we'll have the consultant in to talk about 2003. I asked him how long, he might need. He said, oh, maybe an hour, but if your board likes to talk and ask questions, maybe. I said, let's plan on an hour and a half. And so.
He said, can I be first?
I told him that he would not be first, that we would do the deliberation first and that we would take it up. He's going to be participating by Zoom, and so it was fine with him. He doesn't care about that. So, my question to all of you is, would it be more comfortable, and would you be able to, an option for us would be to start at 6 instead of 6:30. Or we can just do the regular 6:30, depending on how everybody feels about that. Comments?
6 is fine with me. I'm retired, I have lots of.
Brandon? 6 works?
I'd be okay with 6. I think it's better than going really late.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't really, I don't know where all of this will take us and how much time we'll
But
need.
we're gonna rely on you, Madam Chair, to keep us on time.
Okay, Jack, can you
Yeah,
do
that's
6?
fine.
Okay. All right, let's plan on starting at 6 on January 9th.
The deliberations are, again, that is just to basically approve, or to come to approval, which is a recommendation for the select.
Right,
board to-
right, so our decision would be, what do we, what is the recommendation that
Do we
will go
put
to
the
the
warrant
select
article,
board?
is that what we're doing, or did they do that
No, the warrant article will,
later?
that's later, that will.
So this is just our approval or non.
Right, so we would either, recommend approval, to recommend the application to the select board, recommend the application with conditions, or not recommend it.
Okay.
And, I'm thinking about, how that would be written up. I don't want to presume, because we haven't made a decision yet, obviously, on these, and we need to have that discussion. But I have started to put together some of the information that would have to be in a recommendation regardless of whether we were recommending or not. So I've kind of begun that.
What would be an example of recommended with condition or something like this, where it's a zoning, like what, off the top, I mean, not that
Well, I think we could,
for the zoning specifically.
yeah, if there was some particular aspect of their proposal that is connected with one of the standards in particular, like, I don't know, just by way of example, the proposal shall be protective of all natural resources, including significant wildlife habitat. Now, if there isn't in this case, but if there happened to be a deer wintering area over in one corner of this property, we could say,
Except this area.
you've got to stay X feet away from this particular area, and that could be a restriction that is part of the zoning action.
Okay.
Happen in the site review.
Well, it could, I think that, it's another way in which those standards could overlap. But, when you look through the Article 9 standards, there definitely is some potential for overlap. But I tend to look at that as kind of being a good thing, because we get 2 bites at some of these apples, and
And so if an entity
goes out of business. Let's say it got approved. Does that stay as an overlay there?
Those-
Yes, it runs with the land, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's stated somewhere in here that, that
So the
the
reason.
rezoning runs with the land.
Yeah, and as a result,
So it doesn't matter, I mean, obviously somebody else coming in that triggered it would have to still go through the site review process.
Right, right.
Recall, I mean, I remember they said that, Norwich people said that they were purchasing the property.
yeah,
Yeah,
But do they actually have title and right to change the zone now? They don't own it now, they can't do this. They have no right, they have no authority to request it.
and to request,
If you take the parcel, if you change the zone, they don't own the parcel,
there,
the owner has the right. I can't come and request your property, please,
with the-
I think they do own it. I don't remember the timing exactly, but
I should check that. I
I,
think they do too.
they purchased it and it was some, you know, the corporate structure is such that there's some arm of Norwich Solar Technologies, that, I don't know, a holding company or something that actually is the owner. of the
Yeah, I just wanna
property.
make sure that they actually physically have title and ownership of the property.
Yes.
I didn't think
It's-
they did yet.
I don't think they do either, but that's why,
I think it's
Yeah.
tied up, but I don't think they actually.
Yeah,
do that.
I don't,
if they don't, they can ask them to make sure they secure that.
it's,
Might not matter until we vote.
you know, the thing is played out in the application. There's discussion in the application about ownership of the property. I don't remember the details.
I can contact them.
Which was an easy answer. Probably written right here.
There's something about ownership in here somewhere. I just don't remember where it is.
You know,
Thanks a lot. We are adjourned.
Holiday. Yeah, there's some great stuff.